cut you?
I think I just peed.
Buckle up.
We're back in the closet.
Welcome to another episode of Back in the Closet with the Two Crazy Cat Ladies. Sorry, we just had like a technical
Right. It's saying that
issue.
Facebook deleted our podcast.
So, hold on.
Stand by.
We're coming right back.
I'm sorry.
After these messages.
Are we? I don't think we can do it twice. So
Okay.
it's just going to be.
All right. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Let's, we will. Yeah, it's absolutely fine. Okay, great. Welcome everyone. And thank you so much for joining us. We have a lot of people joining us from YouTube. So that's great.
Okay.
Fantastic. I don't know if Facebook is working or not.
It is not working.
It looks like it's
it has
not
a big
working.
Exclamation mark over Facebook.
Which I don't know how that. Okay. But anyway, we are so excited and honored to be joined by
Back in the Closet,
the one and only Dr. Barrie
Sands.
And we're really excited about this very, very important topic, and that Dr. Barrie Sands is going to educate all of us on, because we haven't heard all of this information yet either. But she has some truth bombs she's going to drop on us about diabetes in cats, which is one of the fastest growing epidemics in cats. And I think that cat parents need to know this preventatively and moving forward if your cat if your cat has been diagnosed with diabetes. So thank you, Dr. Barrie Sands, for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. So diabetes, I think, is such an important topic. Back in the 1970s, in America, diabetes in cats was maybe like 1 in 1,000, 2,000 cats.
Yes.
And now the statistics are 1 in 100.
Yep.
Maybe 1 in 200 if you're, depending. And that's probably in America. I don't know about the global. It's probably less globally. And we have a 63% obesity rate in cats.
Right.
Which is insane. And so there's a lot of predisposing factors for cats to get diabetes. And there's a lot to unpack here.
Well, yeah, let's start with this, because I think that for people that hear diabetes, they think, oh, well, they've been eating terrible foods and they got fat and their pancreas is upset with them. And is it just the food? Is it just obesity?
There's a multitude of different metabolic factors. It's basically metabolic dysregulation, and it is primarily around the way glucose is metabolized. But it doesn't always necessarily mean that it's a high carb only diet. So there's a lot of different ways the glucose gets metabolized in the system, and a lot of different reasons why there's a malregulation around that. Things like toxins, stress, hormones, cellular mechanisms that go awry. If carbohydrates, because I know everyone wants to blame high carb diets in cats, and it's true. It's an inappropriate diet for cats. However, there are a lot of cats out there that are eating carb diets and don't have diabetes.
Right. And there are cats, like we've had people reach out to us before that are like, my cat's on a raw food diet and they were diagnosed with diabetes, or they're on a wet food diet and they were diagnosed with diabetes. And you're like, really? I only usually see these in kibble feeders.
Yeah. So there's a lot of other, potential reasons for that. And, I think one of the things that I guess I'd like to talk about, because I don't think anyone ever thinks about it or talks about it, is stress, right? We talk about stress as a problem for so many things. However, we've never really, unpacked how that works in diabetes. So there is a phenomenon called stress hyperglycemia, right? So, and what is that? That is when your blood sugar gets elevated secondary to stress. Now, this is just a phenomenon. It happens all the time in all these different platforms of stress. Like when you're physiologically experiencing stress, you have elevation of stress hormones, things like cortisol and catecholamines, growth hormone, and glucagon, right? So what these hormones do in the presence of your bloodstream is it decreases insulin secretion. And it also causes your body to become more insulin resistance because you're chronically at this high, a low grade, high level of sugar that's out of the normal range.
Oh, wow.
And so that's, you add that on top of a highly processed diet, poor exercise, bad hydration, like being dehydrated. And then you're creating, a system that sets itself up for diabetes. Cats are typically I think it's about 83% of cats are type 2 diabetics.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is this a question? I'm just going to pop it on you, but my sister's a type 1 diabetic. And so as like humans, I have, she was diagnosed when she was 11, I was 9. I'm very familiar with type 1 diabetes because it's my sister and best friend. Is there a type 1 diabetes in cats, or is it just because we only ever really see type 2? It's only diabetes in cats. They don't have like a type, or I haven't seen it.
Well, it's very different. There's no way to test whether you're a type 1 or a type 2. There's no test for that. So typically, a type 1 diabetic is a body whose pancreas does not secrete insulin. You're just completely insulin deficient. So you're reliant on the insulin that you inject in your body, right? Type 2, you have the ability to secrete insulin, but because of all these other metabolic dysregulation factors, you're becoming insulin resistant, meaning that your cells, the insulin is there, but it's not doing a good job, or the cells don't have the receptors, ready on there because of, chronic hyperglycemia or, other hormonal factors. So you have to give insulin to the body to help utilize the pathway of glucose into the cells. But because it's a metabolically driven phenomenon, you can eventually potentially reverse it, right? And you can become non-diabetic if you change the diet. Just like in people, you change your diet up, you get exercise, you detox, you hydrate, you stress less, and then the systems change.
Right. Is it so that is something that we have seen so many times, which is why it's so hopeful when someone says my cat was just diagnosed with diabetes. We're so excited to share with them and resources that we have found about how they can literally
often
reverse it.
Feed
they
into
can
remission
feed themselves, feed their cat into remission. And that is exciting. But I'm wondering if you have any idea, just like, how we've had a couple people that have said to us, my cat's been on a fully
good diet,
balanced raw diet for the past 5 years, 8 years, however long, and they were just diagnosed with diabetes. Is that, in your mind, as an ER veterinarian in general, would your immediate question be, what is the stress like in the home? What would be your next question there?
I mean, I'd want to know if there were any compounding hormonal issues, right? So look, unfortunately, every cat that's a diabetic needs a complete workup. It would be a disservice to you and your pet if you didn't do a complete workup. Right. And what that means is full chemistry panel, CBC, urine analysis, urine culture, abdominal ultrasound, thyroid levels, making sure you don't have hyperthyroidism. If you have a heart murmur, making sure you don't have heart disease. So do the workup. And also there's a blood test that's important to take. And I'm just going to put it out there for people to, if their vet doesn't offer it, they should ask. It's called the fructosamine level. And
Really?
and fructosamine is a marker for your glucose levels being high over the past like 1 to 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks. So it'll discern between stress hyperglycemia and diabetes.
Oh, wow.
And what is that called again? What can we ask for?
Fructosamine?
Fructosamine levels.
Wow. Guys, write that down. Write that down. That's,
down.
I am too. That's very exciting.
Yeah, because what happens when when cats eat a meal, whether it's protein or sugar, well, if it's protein, say it's the proper, the proper food, say high protein diet, the amino acids get broken down, the protein gets broken down into amino acids into the body, then the body absorbs those amino acids. These amino acids go eventually to the liver, and then the liver converts the amino acids into glucose. And glucose will either do one or two things in a cat. You either have to use it immediately for energy, or it's going to get stored in the liver.
Oh.
In the liver.
And not these?
So cats have what they call glycogen stores. You store your sugar in your liver, but there's only so much it can store. Right. So if there's too much coming in, then the sugar is going to if there's too much to be stored and you're not moving, you're not burning it, then it's just going to spill out into the bloodstream as excess.
Wow.
Oh my God.
I freaking love your brain. Can I just say that
had no idea
again?
about
Like,
that,
I know
though.
I say it like every time, but like your brain, the way that you know how the organs in the blood and everything
That's
works
huge,
in the
though.
body. Is
I mean,
amazing.
I don't think, and I think I'm probably speaking for some of us listening, that I had no idea that that's where that the liver is where cats store excess sugar. I did know that cats are made for like quick sprints. They are made for that part of the hunt where it is time to go. And it's not carbohydrates that fuel that, right? It's a completely different.
Right. It's a more complex mechanism because all the stores in the liver undergoes a big name called gluconeogenesis, and that just means that it's the formation of glucose, neogenesis, the new formation of glucose, right? And so when you are in a situation where you're in starvation or you need fuel, that gets broken down in the liver, and then it gets pumped out into the bloodstream for the cells to use. Insulin comes around and says, oh, your cells need some sugar. I'm going to help you along and put you in there, and that's just a couple of chemicals that we're talking about, but there's, all this stuff happening all at once as well. That's kind of complicated. But I think it's important to keep in mind that
Trap King Davis is on Trap King Humane Solutions. Just
Sterling, we love you.
That is the biggest word ever.
Gluconeogenesis.
Gluconeogenesis. I was counting the syllables. That's syllable word. And thank you, Sterling, for pointing that out, because it really is. But like you just said, that's actually a small part of what is happening in that ecosystem of our cats' bodies. So there's more that contributes to.
Right. Even if you have like a really good diet, like a raw food diet that has a lot of good proteins in it, like if there's a hiccup in the step process of, maybe he has too many glycogen stores, or maybe the cat's stressed out, and there's all of these counter-regulatory hormone systems that are getting in the way of the proper metabolism.
What are some big contributors to that kind of disruption from your perspective? Like when you realize that there's things that are disrupting the healthy pathways for.
Well, I would say toxins, poor lymphatic drainage. Right. Not honoring the lymphatics. I know that, we all love to talk about lymphatics.
Today.
I did a deep dive in Rita Hogan's book on the lymphatic system. And it is It is, but it
It's
is
fascinating.
that's where the word
My lymphatic system is not healthy right
No.
now. I'm working on
we're
my
rebounding.
lymphatic.
We're
Well,
trying
you
to
know what? Hugging and yoga like helps your lymphatics. Squeezing.
I bought a trampoline.
to do the bounce. Right?
I was
Okay,
just like,
let's
okay.
refocus back on cats though.
Okay.
Because so when you're looking at the things that are disrupting those healthy pathways, even if they are on a fully species appropriate diet, what are the things that you see on the
As a main
outside that can contribute to things getting glitchy on the inside?
Besides stress?
Yeah, I mean, I would say stress, hydration, exercise, movement, because movement is the way to help your lymphatics, right? It's a passive system. So every time you flex and move, you're draining that. And hydration is key. And stress. I mean, just giving a cat a bath that he doesn't like raises enough cortisol, raises the cortisol enough and the catecholamines to create their blood sugar to go up to like 180.
Wow.
Just from a bath, and the normal blood sugar is somewhere between 70 to 110.
It's the same as in humans.
Wow.
Pretty much.
Close, yeah.
Not too far, but I mean, there's very rare, even cats that come into the ER for a variety of different reasons, their glucoses are always high.
Right.
They're in like they're 180, 210, because they're stressed.
It spikes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay, Dr. Sands, could you tell us a little bit, because we had the honor and pleasure of visiting you in your home. We know where you're at right now. This is very exciting. A few weeks ago, I think. I don't know.
I think it's about a month now.
Has it been a month?
Where does the time go?
But you had said that there are new drugs on the market that they're using for diabetes in cats. And and you were worried about them. And I really want people to know this information in case it's being recommended for their cats with diabetes. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So they're called oral hypoglycemics, meaning that it's a drug that is going to lower the sugar in your body. That's not insulin. And there's two kinds that are for cats. One is a pill and one is a liquid. Basically, it's kind of the same drug made by a different company. And one of the names is called Bexacat.
Yeah, Bexacat. So it's specifically for cats.
Yeah, it's only cats, specifically for cats. Bexacat and Senvelgo, Senvelgo. That's the liquid version, and the pill is Bexacat. And what these are, I mean, basically, in a nutshell, they are. I don't know how technical to get. I'm just gonna say it.
No.
They're called SGLT2 inhibitors. Now, what that means is that there is a receptor in your kidneys. Your kidneys are the organs that will help filter out your bloodstream and retain fluids. And then whatever it doesn't want to bring back into the body gets excreted as urine. Okay, does that make sense? So
right.
in the kidney, there are these receptors that take glucose, and as the sugar is coming down into the kidneys, it takes the glucose and the water and pulls it back into the body. So that you should not have glucose in your urine, right? That's a sign of too much glucose in your bloodstream. Correct. And it's spilling over into your urine. And so that's how a lot of people diagnose diabetics, when they have high sugar levels in their urine.
Yep.
And so there's too much in the blood and it spills into the urine, right? So that's a normal process to do. What this drug is doing, it's stopping the receptors from reabsorbing the glucose back into the body. So all the glucose that's in the body is just going to get peed out.
Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, and so the problem with that is that you're predisposed to having urinary tract infections because you have a bladder that's always filled with sugar in it. You have a problem with potentially becoming dehydrated because now you're pulling, sugar into the kidneys, and water likes to follow sugar to dilute it. And so you're going to have increased thirst, increased urination, like PUPD, what we call,
All the
right?
symptoms of diabetes.
Yeah, which is a symptom of diabetes, right? And it can also cause a, a, a syndrome called euglycemic diabetes ketoacidosis.
Oh, ketoacidosis?
Yeah, that's a huge side effect of these drugs.
Explain what
That's
that is. Yeah.
That's
So, so what ketoacidosis is, there's a lot of cats that are diabetics, and if you don't realize that they have diabetes, and it gets unchecked, eventually there is so much unutilized sugar in the body, and the cells are starving, right? Because they don't have the sugar to metabolize, and so the body starts to burn fat for metabolism in an unhealthy way, and your body produces ketones. Right. So ketones are a byproduct of unhealthy fat metabolism. It's not like the ketone diets, right?
Right.
It's not like being on a high ketone diet, and that's a healthy situation, but this is not. This is the opposite of that. And so when you have these high levels of ketones in your body, you feel really, really sick. And most of the cats that I see coming in on the ER have high levels of ketones, and they're being hospitalized for days.
these are cats that have been on these drugs?
No, these are cats that are just regular diabetics that people don't realize that they're diabetics
Oh,
Right. So
wow.
it's
until they're vomiting and they're not eating, and then they're not moving, and then they come in, and then they're like this flat little pancake of a cat who feels terrible, and their blood sugar is like 1,000 and their ketones are super high.
oh wow. So
Jeez.
back to these. I don't want to get too so far off sidetracked from these drugs though, because what was it about these drugs that that flagged you? When did you first realize, like, I mean, we know that everything's going to have a side effect, but these sound
All
like
of these drugs are going to
really
have.
Right. So the inclusion criteria for using these drugs is very strict. And so if you're a veterinarian and you're going to be prescribing these drugs, then the cat that you're working on has to meet 12 different criteria in order to be safe, deemed safe for this particular cat. You have to be I mean, I don't know if I don't think I need to go into all of that, but there's a lot that they need to, like a checklist to say, okay, this is a drug that we can use for you. And I don't feel that there are a lot of veterinarians that are doing that. I think
Okay. That was going to
That
be
was
my
the
question.
question.
Is that because
They're
I
not-
feel like the majority of drugs would need to fit. I mean, just watch the commercials, right? Like you need to fit all kinds of criteria in order to be a candidate for said drug.
like the situation
and
needs to
most-
be elevated to such a point that this is going to be more helpful than it is harmful.
Right. Like for this particular, so for instance, you have like a new diabetic who's a healthy cat. He's not vomiting, no GI signs, no pancreatitis, thyroid is normal, has never had insulin before, has never had ketosis. He's like, you're fine except your sugar is high. And that's, I feel, not the majority of these cats. There's always some concurrent situation going on. Right. And I have seen a handful of these cats coming into the ER with side effects of taking these drugs. And the side effects are so incredibly horrible. They're in these ketotic states that you can't use most of them, you cannot get out of them. You can't get them out of it. And then they have pancreatitis, and then they go into liver failure, and then it's just a snowball. And I'd say, 9 out of 10 of them are going to die.
Oh my God.
Are you serious?
Yeah. It's not okay. And I would just say that it's just not a drug that's necessary. It really isn't. There's so many things to do. I mean, in my opinion, the drug should be taken off the market and not be allowed for cats.
Is there, what would you recommend then to a cat parent who has this diagnosis and the vet recommends it? I know that there are going to be some vets that don't really even know what that checklist is, or maybe they're busy and they think that the cat checks all the checklists. What are the questions that we need to be asking our veterinarian?
Well, I mean, honestly, if your veterinarian is recommending this particular drug, and you have not spent close to $3,000 in diagnostics, then he's probably has no business giving you that drug.
Oh, wow.
That is the best way to put it.
That is a very good way to put it. Where we can understand.
Let's circle back to that, because like what you said, when a cat is diagnosed with diabetes, there are so many things they need. Let's go over that list again of what are those tests that we need to have run to better understand where our cat is at and what we can do proactively or with diet or things that are going to be part of their dailiness with us. We can do what's that checklist for the blood panels, for the fruit? What are the big words?
Well, I mean, $3,000 is enough for like $3,000 is enough to know that, like, if
that's San Diego prices, you know. So I think that's not always I don't
know that much. But what are the things that we should be asking for in those blood panels?
Well, I think when your cat is a diabetic, if you want to set yourself up for success, I think you need, a very good veterinarian. You need to be counseled with how this is going to go down, because your life is changing. Your life is changing because now you are, you're going to have to manage this diabetes up front with insulin, right? You're going to have to give injections, and it is highly recommended to check blood sugar. Right. So you're going to have to get yourself comfortable with poking your cat in the pad, and they're all fine with it. A lot of them are they're fine. A little bit of a poke, a little microbleed, and you check the blood sugar, and then you figure out what insulin how much to give. There's like sliding scales. And so there's a learning curve for the human, for that, and a good support team. And so I think if you're going to, embark in that, the blood work is essential. The CBC chem, fructosamine levels, urine analysis, urine culture, abdominal ultrasound. I think that would be like the basic.
What's the abdominal ultrasound for?
The abdominal ultrasound is going to look at your pancreas. It's going to tell you if you have pancreatitis. It's going to tell you if you have possibly concurrent GI disease. Do you have thickened bowels? Is your gallbladder okay? Is it sludgy? What does your liver look like? Do you have kind of like a fatty liver? It'll give you a deeper look as to what's under the hood.
Right. Wow.
And very helpful.
Okay.
Very helpful.
So let's discuss two things. Basically, if your cat was just diagnosed with diabetes, let's start there. If your cat was just diagnosed with diabetes by your vet at a no huge symptoms or anything, we're just going in for a checkup, and because they're drinking more or they're urinating more or something like that, and the vet has said that they are diabetic, not necessarily insulin dependent yet. What would be your recommendation?
Well, I guess it would depend on if they had ketones or not. So if they don't have ketones in their urine, and also it depends on how high their blood sugar is.
Okay.
And also the concurrent clinical signs. So if it's a cat who's drinking a lot of water, peeing a lot, is eating but losing weight, if there's other factors involved, then I would say probably best to support the system, change the diet, hydrate the patient, and give them insulin, because you don't want to not give insulin, because you don't want to say, okay, well, let's just change your diet, because you're not going to do that fast enough.
Right.
before that sugar level gets super high, and then you become ketotic, and then you're going to feel really crappy.
Yeah.
So I would start insulin and check blood sugars, because you may find that if you can just get the sugar down into a normal-ish range as you are changing the diet, implementing these protocols, then you'll find that the next time you check his blood sugar in the morning, instead of it being 350, it may be 120, and then you don't need insulin.
Right. Yeah. Monica here in the comments said, my biggest hard lesson was going against my vet's instruction for insulin. I only gave him a shot when I tested him first. I almost lost him once because his dose was too high.
Wow.
And that's, I think that's, like
is that a
growing
thing?
up with my sister, right? Like it's like she judges how much insulin she gives herself based on what her blood sugars are. And that's the important piece that so many people that reach out to us miss, because they're like, my cat has to have 2 insulin shots a day. And it's like, do you check their blood sugar? No, my vet has never told me to check their blood sugar. I have never checked their blood sugar.
That's my question.
I just give them insulin. And that's
my question. Is that a normal protocol for veterinarians to say 2 insulin shots a day without checking blood sugar?
So yes. And so the reason behind that is a lot of people are totally squeamish and don't ever want to do that with their animals. They won't check their blood. But you can check their urine. So there's a crude way of looking at the level of sugar in their blood by looking at the level of sugar that's dumping in the urine. So you can get sent home with these things called keto diastics, which are these little ketone glucose strips that when your cat pees in the morning, you just catch the pee. You can do it with, like, they have certain litter that doesn't clump, and you can get that, or you have like a little ladle. When they're squatting in the morning, you just put it underneath to catch it. And then you dip the strip in the urine. If there's 0 glucose in the urine, well, then do not give your cat insulin, because that means that the blood sugar is normal, right? And if it's, high, like 500 to 1,000, then, give your dose of insulin. I mean, usually most cats are getting 1 or 2 units, maybe 3 units of insulin. And then you can, if you're astute, you can use that method plus their clinical signs, if they're not drinking as much and urinating as much. And then that being said, you have to watch for signs of hypoglycemia, too little sugar. Like if you give him too much, and say too much is his regular dose, but you find that in the middle of the day, he's kind of like staggering around and, acting weird. Well, don't give him more insulin.
Right.
Because that's probably because his blood sugar is too low. And so there's a lot of guesswork and sort of monitoring, subjective monitoring. And I think that in my mind, it's much easier to check the blood sugar.
Yeah.
Not all cats are, into that. So you have to.
I can get it. I mean, we've done fluids before, which I think is a little more intense than checking blood sugar. But it is, it is one of those things, like you said it very well. If your cat's diagnosed with diabetes, your life is about to change. And it is going to be a commitment that you're going to make, but being informed is going to be the game changer. And this is really an empowering conversation, because knock on wood, we've never had a cat deal with diabetes, but it is something that our community brings up to us so often. And it really is, it's really empowering to realize just how many things actually go into this. It's not just, diabetes, here's a prescription diet and insulin shots. You know what I mean? Like,
also,
it's much more.
Do you think that maybe some of these, because we get a lot of people that are like, took my cat to the vet. They, and I think it was, I think usually it's just, I don't even know why they took them to the vet, but they'll say, took my cat to the vet. And they said that they have early stage diabetes, but they don't need to be on insulin yet. What can I do? Right. And that we always go into the diet from there. It's like, what are you feeding them? And let's go there. But
what say you?
Why do you think that this could be that they have elevated, like 200 or something as far as blood sugar levels, but maybe it's because a little bit because of the diet, but also because of the stress that they would say you don't need insulin yet?
Well, I would ask that veterinarian if they ran a fructosamine level.
Okay.
Great.
Because if they did and it was normal, then the cat's not diabetic. He may have just had stress.
I have to say, this is the first time in my many plus years of having a cat that I ever heard the word fructosamine levels. Like, I had no idea that was the thing. So
so basically what that's testing for, whenever there's too much sugar in the body, just like in people, the sugar molecules will start to attach themselves to proteins, right? And it's called glycation. When a sugar molecule binds up to a protein or a fat molecule, because it just doesn't know where to go. It's like oversaturating the body, so it starts attaching things. And then if that keeps happening, then there's a process which is called AGE, advanced glycation end products, that happen. And that is just an onslaught of these sugar molecules that are binding up to proteins and fats in your body, and it's completely disrupting everything. It's like taking a protein and getting a ball and chain on it. It can't be a protein anymore. It's all sticky and gooey and it doesn't work. And so then you have all of these inflammatory mediators and cytokines and interleukins and all of these things that disrupt everything. And it's all about just stopping the sugar.
Making it simple. But you do a great job of helping us recognize just how much more complex this is than I think a lot of people think. Real quick, back to the pharmaceuticals that are out there. Judith posted that this is from the Bexcat website, so parents understand it's not a swap. It is, do not use Bexacat in cats who have previously been treated with insulin, who are receiving insulin, or are insulin dependent. DM. I don't think that means directly.
Right, or insulin dependent, diabetes mellitus, insulin dependent. So and that's another problem too, because like I said before, 80% of cats are type 2, and then there's a subset that might be type 1 and you don't know. So if your cat's a type 1 and you give it the Bexacat, they're going to get sick. Right? So I think the take home message around those pharmaceuticals is that if it's a once a day pill, so if you start your cat on that, and within 24 hours, they're not feeling good, whether they stop eating, they're vomiting, they have diarrhea, any single little sign, just stop giving it and go to your vet immediately. Like, don't sit on it. Don't say, oh, I don't know, he vomits all the time, I'm just going to give him another pill and watch him. Don't do that. Because the cats that I see that come into the ER that are really sick, they've been sick for days and the owners are still giving it. And it's like, oh my God.
Wow. Yeah, because they were told to give it. All right.
Real quick, I want to, Monica has another great question here. I wonder if the new innovative
Pet
Lab came out with a new, they do the poop test. I love them because, I'm cat shit crazy. I love anything that you can learn from poop. And they now have a cortisol.
She's not squeamish at all.
Which is better than like the blood test that, will catch it while it spikes, whatever. The poop test for cortisol is more broad, long-term. We had a great interview with them about this new test. She's asking, and I'm curious what your take on this is. She said, I wonder if the new IPL stress cortisol test would help shed some light on the stress sugar factor. Do you think that would be at all? You do?
I do. I would like, it would be interesting to see the correlation between blood sugar, blood glucose levels and the high cortisol, because I would think that it's going to be high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think it's going to be high. And she might even know, the people from Innovative Labs, they might even have an answer to that.
Yeah.
We might have to follow up with them, because that would be a helpful test to run if this is the situation that you're
right, because you kind of you're trying to diagnose things from all different angles. Like, is my cat, how stressed out is my cat? So if the cortisol levels are really high and you're diabetic and you're already diabetic, well, then you need to take measures to de-stress this cat.
Right.
And whether it is, cat trees or palm trees or, essential oils or, CBD or like whatever it is, and working on yourself, right? Doing intentionality, visualizations and, coherence training with your cat and really bringing the stress level down in you, because we know that we're tied to that too.
Yeah.
Our stress and their stress is,
I tell
We're
them,
actually going to be live with Julian Hart on Monday. Is it Monday? It's Monday.
oh my gosh, is it Monday?
Yeah. And talking about stress and cats and like understanding how our stress affects our cats. And it's
a big deal. And I tell the story, I've told it a couple times, but I remember coming home from work one day completely stressed out, and I walked in the door and Jack was there, and usually so excited, all like quacker Jack at me, like mer, 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 mer. You know how he does. If anyone knows Jack. And I walked in the door and he just poofed up at me.
He's like, what?
Right? And there are
he
people
looked
that
at her
say,
like he didn't know who she
like
was.
he did not recognize me at all. And I remember thinking, oh my God, it was an elevated day for sure. But it makes me think those people that say that cats see energy before they see people's faces, facial recognition or smell or anything, they see energy. And I think, yeah, this whole correlation between, if you give your cat all the enrichment in the world, they've got a catio and all the vertical space, tunnels and hidey holes and everything that you can dream of for a cat, but you are chronically stressed.
Yeah, it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And so, honestly, if you are an owner who has a cat who's diagnosed as a diabetic, then the first thing to do is look inward. Is really start focusing on your own stress management, because that is going to be like the icing on the cake. Like that is paramount. It's an invitation for you. It's an invitation for the human to say, okay, these are what do I need to look at in my life that I can, de-stress about for myself. And then you can, entrain that in your cat, where you go into this calming, and then you can link in energetically in where what I call entrainment, where your hearts lock and they click. And you're like, oh, that's the space. Okay, here we are.
Yes. Oh,
can we do a whole podcast on entrainment?
Listen,
Yeah.
on entrainment.
I love that. It's like one of my favorite topics.
Let's go hand in hand, because earlier you had mentioned, I just want to kind of bring it back to that. Earlier you had mentioned when your cat is diagnosed with diabetes, your life is about to change. And I really want this to be an empowering
Podcast.
Moment, right? Like of your life is about to change. But just like Dr. Barrie Sands just said, if you have a cat that's diagnosed, like take the opportunity to look inward. Yes, like don't let your cat's diagnosis be another stressor for you.
Right.
We got to do a whole podcast on entrainment.
Yeah, but
figure out how you can fit this together.
Yeah, and realize that like you can be empowered, like let it be empowering to you to take control of the situation, not stressful, but empowering of, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to figure this out and do all the steps that I need to do. And now from Dr. Barrie Sands, we know so much more about things that we can do, things that we ask, questions that we ask.
And that go into this diagnosis to begin with, the things that I've never even really, that has been one of the biggest things to me, Dr. Barrie, that we've had people that have said, my cat has been on a species appropriate diet their whole life or many, many years, and were diagnosed with diabetes.
Yeah,
because
there's
I think
only
we simplify,
but we've heard it, and it's like
it's a mystery. And I think
I've always thought that it was just caused by food. So yeah, you really cracked the code, right? Like,
yeah, there's a lot, and I think in a sort of a bird's eye, eagle eye viewpoint of all sorts of disease. Right. Yeah. Because, we like to talk about there's the biophysical, the biochemical, the bioenergetic, the intelligence and all of that, and how we can heal from all levels when our animals are here as a soul contract for us in relationship to help us be better humans, and so when you have a situation like this, which is a big deal, your life is going to change and you're going to have to level up. You're going to have to get more sciencey. You're going to have to learn how to give an injection. You're going to have to be less squeamish. You're going to have to want to do blood work and make grafts and it's a whole new world for you, right? And so there's a reason I think that person was why this cat became a diabetic for that person.
Correct.
Yeah.
That you had to rise to the occasion in that way, so that you can manage your stress, look at things differently, find the sweetness in life in a different way.
Wow. Okay, you guys, I'm going to leave this hanging with, stay tuned for the podcast called Entrainment.
Yes.
Because that I feel is going to be,
we're gonna book that as soon as we get off here.
Yeah, we're gonna talk, because just like you just said, like dis-ease, any disease is dis-ease, and I feel like all of us here already know that our cats do absolutely contribute to making us better humans, and so when they face challenges, like you said, we have to level up, and there is this growth that happens, but recognizing that the core of it is dis-ease. So what can we do to help heal that, not just in our cats, but in ourselves? I think this is,
and it's a lesson we continue to learn on a regular basis, over and over and over and over again
until we get it.
It is, but it's
Judith said, may the woo-woo and medical diagnostics be ever in your favor.
Love that.
All right, I know that we've already gone over our usual podcast time, but anything top of mind that you want to leave with the community about diabetes, or just this new sense of empowerment for this diagnosis?
I think it's important to don't freak out. Don't freak out about it. Take a deep breath. Know you're getting into a situation, and I do feel it's really important to have a veterinarian that is knowledgeable, that can help you, because you're gonna, if you don't, and they're out there. There are veterinarians out there that really don't know how to manage this well, and they're gonna take you down a path that it's not gonna work for you. So, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I do telemedicine consultations for people. So if they need clarification, if they need help, if they need structure, I can be there to guide them with that through their process.
And link is in the description to
drbarriesands.com, you guys. It's one of the best websites in the world. Just go explore. You're up to so much revolutionary stuff on a regular basis, and
we're so grateful for you.
I really feel like it's a get ready to go down the rabbit hole. But great reminder that I think telehealth, a veterinarian like yourself that offers telehealth, can be a great teammate to your boots on the ground veterinarian. And so think about that, everyone. When we're dealing with these things, it can be really helpful to have an extra teammate like Dr. Barrie that it helps us know the questions to ask, or the diagnostics that should be run to have a better idea of what's happening. Yeah.
So thank you, Dr. Barrie Sands, for joining us again. And we will have you back very soon as your busy schedule allows, to talk about entrainment because I think that is going to be also super valuable to the cat community. So thank you.
I love you so much.
We love you, and we will see you very soon.
Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Love you guys.
Good night, y'all.
Bye.